you know, so you're gonna have to put us on YouTube. Oh, never mind. There. And we shouldn't. Oh.
All right, I believe we're all set.
I look over, all I see is my forehead.
I don't know about this plan.
A little echo.
Oops. Is everybody muted? I know that there's, basically when anyone unmutes themselves, they're gonna feedback through the system.
So who is not muted? Because we're getting feedback.
Everybody's muted. It's John, maybe?
Let's see. Guilty.
All right. So I think
What
we're.
would you like me to say?
Still gonna get feedback. If you have it coming out of there, back into your computer, back into there. So it's gonna echo all day long. We're gonna have to just accept it. Okay. There's no fix to it.
Yep.
Oh,
Well, does it matter that you can see the, I can see the whole council table? So do you have to have each one of the individual counselors up there too?
that's a good question. And Paul, I actually just made you host, and so can we bring in the remaining counselor?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you vaguely. Yeah.
Well, how come this worked for a whole year and now all of a sudden it's not working?
There we go.
Dawn, no one cares what your hair looks like. Anybody want to tell me what's going on?
I'll let you know if I can.
Is it helpful if Don and I sit?
Yes, you guys want to, everyone want to circle around a little bit more? That way it'll be.
Yeah, I'll stay right here.
Jean Marie, can you hear me?
Who? Can I hear who? Yes, I
Can you
can.
hear somebody?
I can't, what do you got, the owl on?
Yeah, we're just trying to, we have to switch to the owl.
Yeah, we did this to eliminate the feedback.
Here, I'll.
Jason, are you still with us and ready?
Yep, I'm still here and ready.
All right, we apologize for the delay. Chair Clucci, are you ready for us to get started?
I think we are ready.
Liam should be coming out of that owl. We should be able to hear him nice and clear. Liam, can you just keep talking for 1 second?
Always happy to talk, Paul. That's never been an issue.
So we can
You
hear
want to hear me okay?
Yes.
we can hear him
Okay,
fine.
I'll
Can
just
you
turn-
not hear him?
Yeah, I'll just turn you up. That's cool. Okay.
All right, well, with that, again, Jason, I apologize for our technical difficulties. This is atypical. Usually we're a fairly well-oiled machine, but I did want to just briefly introduce Jason and
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, call the meeting to order.
Oh, okay. Workshop needs to call to order too.
And then we'll get going. Sorry for the late start, everybody. We had some technical difficulties. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 5:42. This is a workshop of the Town Council, Scarborough. It's January 5th. And I'm seeing that we have in person 6 counselors and virtually Councilor Katerina. The topic today is to discuss the results of the community survey that were recently received and performed by ETC Institute. We do have a guest speaker. I'm going to pass it off to Ken and Liam to tee this up. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And Liam, go ahead and tee it up, sir.
Great, thank you. So just a brief introduction. This was a process that actually goes back a few fiscal years. I believe Councilor Katerina had a role in providing about half the funding we ultimately needed in the FY20 budget. In the FY21 budget, the council allocated some additional funds to move forward with this initiative. The process that we're about to hear the summation of this evening really began this summer in going through an RFP process that we received 3 bids, and we ultimately selected ETC Institute out of Kansas to conduct our community survey. I just want to note the efforts of Councilor Ken Johnson and Councilor John Anderson for all the work that they put in to bring this forward, a series of meetings and promotions, and as well as Councilor Katerina for advocating at the polls and promoting it, and particularly the efforts of Allison Carrier, who's really took on a lot of the work to promote and advertise and market this survey. And I think what you'll hear from Jason is the success of the survey overall. So with that, Jason, I'll turn it over to you. I know you have a presentation to work through.
Okay, great. Thanks, Liam. Let me grab the presentation here. Let's see. Do one here. Okay, everyone see that okay? All right, my name is Jason Murado. I'm with ETC Institute. And ETC is a market and research firm that specializes in conducting community surveys for local governments. And this past fall, for the first time, we conducted.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry. I'm not seeing anything on my screen.
Oh,
Am
okay.
I supposed to be seeing something?
Can anyone see the screen or no?
Yes, we can hear.
We can see it in chambers.
We can see it.
I can't. I see nothing. It's got to be shared on the Zoom.
Jim Marie, Liam and I are connected just like you are.
I'm not seeing anything.
And you guys can see it all right, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah.
He goes to the link and just raise his hand. I wonder if he can.
Hey, guys, do you mind? You want?
Yeah.
Marvin,
Mr. Gates,
Yeah.
I see that you have your hand up. So we're gonna unmute
All
you.
I was saying is that I could see it from where I'm sitting at home.
You can see it as well. Okay, thank you.
But I can't see it.
Well, Jean Marie, I might suggest that you go out and come back in as a panelist.
All right.
Connection
So what do I do? I've never done this before. So I just leave and then come back on the same link.
Yeah, give it it's worth a shot. Seems to be isolated to your computer, your connection.
Well, it's not me. No.
maybe? We can see you.
It's your computer, not you. That's
There you go.
I'm glad we did 90 minutes.
Yeah.
This is why we did 90 minutes.
Things ran over last time. Overcompensated. Oh, okay.
Sure, April, this is old hat. This is just a regular.
You guys don't get the tech support.
No.
All right. I'm back in. I am not seeing any screen. And I know, I don't know what's going on your end. I've been on Zoom for the last 2 or 3 days with various things. I've never had an issue, so I don't know what's going on.
We can see you again now, Councilor Katarina. Can you see the screen?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm going to suggest that there, in the agenda is the presentation materials that he's going to go through. Why don't you just listen and follow along on your computer?
Well, that's not too convenient, but you're going to have to hold on then while I go in and find all the stuff.
Yeah, it's right in the agenda, same where you click the link to join the meeting, or you probably did the panelist. So if you go to the town website.
Yeah, well, hold on.
Hey, Jason, do you want to just stop, share and share again, just for funsies, see if it works?
yeah.
Can you
yeah,
see Jason? Jean-Marie, can you see Jason right now? Can you see four of us? Are you looking?
Wait a minute. Wait. Now I'm back at Zoom and I can see Jason fine. I can see everybody fine. I just don't see any screen share or.
He stopped sharing.
That's the issue, but I can't see. Well, can he screen share? Can someone screen share?
Well, I had stopped it, but I'll pull it up again. So we'll see if it works any better now.
I mean, we've been doing this for 1.5 years, guys. 2 years.
Can you, how about now? Can everyone see this?
Yes,
No.
we can.
Nope.
So I'm just, Jean-Marie, we're going to move on. It looks like it's isolated to your connection. And I don't think we're going to be able to resolve it during the meeting. I'd like to make sure that we at least have a chance.
Great.
To get information in.
Okay, fine.
So Jason, sorry for the hiccups to get started.
Yeah, no,
turn it
no,
back
that's
over to
okay.
you.
Yeah, no problem. Should I try one more time, maybe to stop sharing and pull it up again, and we'll give it
One more time.
we'll give it one last shot and see if that makes any difference.
One for the team.
Otherwise, yeah.
For the team. Marvin could see it.
All right, same thing. Can everyone see this? But
We're fine.
okay. All right. All right. Well, I will begin. So, hey, my name is Jason Murata with ETC Institute. We're a market research firm that specializes in conducting community surveys for local governments. And this past fall, for the first time, we conducted a community survey for the town of Scarborough. So today I'm going to go through the key findings from the survey. The full report that we provided is very detailed and comprehensive. So today I'm going to start by going through the high-level findings. And I'll be happy to answer any questions as well. And then if we want, we can go through the results at a more detailed level. I do have one quick slide about ETC Institute. We're based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local government. We've been doing this type of work for more than 35 years. And in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted surveys in more than 900 communities all across the country. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I'll go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. What I call the bottom line up front are our main conclusions, boiled down to a couple of PowerPoint slides. And then I'll go through the major survey findings to show how we came to those conclusions. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer those. I have quite a few slides to go through, so if you want to jump in and ask a question as I'm going through, that's perfectly fine. Or if you want to wait till the end, that works as well. So there are several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with the delivery of major town services, and then also to help determine what residents feel are the top priorities for the community. Hopefully this survey will also help set a baseline for future surveys. A lot of communities that we work with conduct these surveys every 2 to 3 years and include a lot of the same questions each time, so that we can start measuring trends over time. And then also we're able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So just a little background about the survey. The survey was 7 pages long, the mailed version of it was, and that's a pretty typical length for one of our community surveys. The survey was administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the town. Our goal is to receive at least 600 completed surveys, and we had a really, really good response. Even though the survey was conducted just a little before the holiday season, this was conducted really from early November to early December. Our goal was 600 surveys, and we ended up with 862 completed surveys. And the results of the 862 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error plus or minus 3.2%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 3.2% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but really there is a very small margin of error. So here we have a map of the town. The red dots are households that completed the survey. So we had a good distribution all throughout the town. And we also made sure we had a good representation from key demographic areas such as age, race, ethnicity, and gender. So here are our main conclusions from the survey. We found that residents have a very positive perception of Scarborough. 86% of respondents were satisfied with the overall quality of life, which is an outstanding number, much higher than most other communities. We also found that the satisfaction with town services is much higher in Scarborough than it is in other communities. You rated above the US average in 59 out of the 60 areas that we compared. And in most cases, your ratings are significantly higher, which we'll see in more detail in a little bit. As I was looking through this benchmarking data, there were a couple of areas that especially stood out. One is that for the satisfaction with the overall quality of town services, you rated 14% above the US average. And that's one of the most important questions on the survey, because they were asking residents to take into account all of the services that you provide and really give an overall satisfaction rating for how well you're providing services. And the other area that really stood out was satisfaction with customer service from town employees. There you rated 42% above the US average. I believe 93% of respondents were satisfied with the overall quality of customer service from town employees, which is one of the highest numbers I've ever seen. So really, really outstanding numbers. And then we found that the top priorities for town services are traffic flow and the ease of getting around town, maintenance of streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure. And then we asked residents, what are the top issues facing Scarborough over the next 5 years? And the top choices were pace of growth and expansion, affordability of town services, and affordable housing. So first we'll look at some general perceptions that residents have of town. Here we asked residents how satisfied they are with a number of different areas related to perceptions of Scarborough. So for this chart, the dark blue are those who are very satisfied, the light blue is satisfied, the gray is neutral, and we interpret neutral as meeting expectations for these types of charts. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale. And the pink are those who are dissatisfied, the darker pink are dissatisfied. So overall, the positive ratings far outweigh the negative. There's a lot more blue than pink. If you look at the top of this chart, most residents feel safe in Scarborough, and most are satisfied with the overall quality of life. Another area that stood out was this fourth row down. 73% of respondents are satisfied with the overall quality of town services, and that's compared to only 5% who are dissatisfied. And again, that's to us one of the most important questions on the survey. There were a couple of areas that had more dissatisfied residents than satisfied. That's these bottom two rows, how well the town is managing growth, and then the availability of affordable housing. This was the very first question on the survey. Here we asked residents to rate major categories of town services. And then later on in the survey, we asked them to rate some more specific areas within some of these categories. So here you can see the blue, once again, far outweighs the negative, a lot more positive respondents than negative. In fact, over 85% of respondents were satisfied with customer service, public safety, library services, public beaches and waterfront parks. There was only one area where the dissatisfied rating, there were more dissatisfied respondents than satisfied, and that was public transportation. Another area that had over 30% of respondents who were dissatisfied was traffic flow, but even for that, you still had more satisfied than dissatisfied residents. So we also found that residents in all areas of Scarborough are satisfied with the overall quality of town services. So here we have a map of the town. And what we did here is we broke the results out by census block group. So these are very small areas. We created a map like this for every question on the survey, asked on a 5-point scale. So there are over 100 maps like this in the report. This one is for the overall quality of town services. And you can see the entire map is blue. So what this tells us is that residents in all parts of the town are satisfied with the overall quality of town services. And it also shows that you're providing services equally throughout the town. Sometimes what happens is, even if the ratings are really good overall, once you break it into these smaller geographic areas, you'll see some areas where residents aren't as satisfied or feel like they're not getting as good of service as people in other parts of the town. But here you can see that that's not the case at all, as the entire map is blue. And this map is for the overall quality of life in Scarborough. Here, not only is the entire map blue, but there are several areas in dark blue, which is the highest possible rating, which means that residents in all parts of the town are satisfied with the overall quality of life. So I mentioned earlier that satisfaction with town services is much higher in Scarborough than it is in other communities. You rated above the US average in 59 out of the 60 areas that we compared. And what especially is impressive about that is that you rated significantly higher in 50 of those areas. And by significant, we mean more than the margin of error of the survey, which was at 3.2%. And also you rated above the Northeast average in 58 of the 68 areas, and significantly higher in 52 of those areas. And this is based on a national survey that ETC Institute conducts every year with randomly selected residents all across the country. We conduct this survey every year so that we always have the most updated benchmarking data when we do these comparisons. So for these next few charts, the dark blue line are Scarborough residents who are either very satisfied or satisfied. The gray bar are the satisfaction ratings from residents in the Northeast region, which includes the state of Maine as well as some surrounding states. And then the national average, which is the light blue, are the satisfaction ratings from residents from all across the US. So this first chart's for major categories of town services. In 9 of the 12 areas, your ratings are significantly higher than both the regional and national average, which is what the blue arrow represents. So that includes everything from public safety, library, solid waste, parks and recreation, public education, stormwater management, communication, public, maintaining streets and sidewalks. And then the area that to me really stands out the most is this top row, customer service from town employees. You had a 93% satisfaction rating, and you can see the regional and national average are just barely over 50%. Now for codes and ordinances, your ratings were a little above the regional and national average, but not significantly. And then there were just 2 areas where your ratings were below other communities. And that includes traffic flow and then public transportation. These comparisons are all specific for public safety. In most areas, your ratings are significantly higher than other communities. So that includes police protection. This top row, that's one of the ones that stands out the most. Overall, 93% of respondents were satisfied with the overall quality of police protection, which you can see is almost 30% above the national average. Other areas where you rate significantly higher include fire protection, how quickly both police and fire respond to emergencies, overall efforts to prevent crime. When it comes to visibility of police in neighborhoods, there your ratings are more on par with other communities. And the one area that does rate lower is visibility of police in retail areas. These comparisons are related to infrastructure. Once again, you can see in most areas your ratings are significantly higher. This includes things such as the cleanliness of streets and other public areas, snow removal, the condition of both major streets as well as neighborhood streets. The only area that rates lower is street lighting. And actually street lighting is pretty much on par with the regional average, but it's below the national average. And then sidewalks is quite a bit higher than the regional average, but just a little bit below the national average. And then these comparisons are for community services. This is mainly related to parks and recreation. You can see in, again, most areas your ratings are significantly higher, which includes a wide variety of services such as walking and biking trails, playgrounds, recreation programs, special events. There's a couple of areas where your ratings were either just slightly above or more on par with other communities, but there's nothing that rated significantly below. And then for trash and recycling, you can see very high ratings for trash collection, very high ratings for curbside recycling. Both of those are more than 20% above the national average. For recycling services and drop-off centers, the ratings are not bad, but they're more on par with other communities. And then this is another area that really stood out. We asked how residents felt about the town's response to COVID-19. 75% of residents were satisfied or very satisfied with the town's overall response to COVID-19. The regional average is only 36%, and the national average is 33%. And this is based on a national study that ETC Institute's been doing since March of 2020, residents from all across the country. So these are really amazing results, more than double both the regional and national average. So now we'll switch gears and take a look at top priorities. We asked residents, what are the 3 most significant issues you think Scarborough will face over the next 5 years? You can see the top priority is pace of community growth and expansion, followed by the affordability of town services, and then third was affordable housing. So those are really the top 3 that kind of stand out. So I showed earlier how satisfied residents were with major categories of city services. As a follow-up question to that, we asked which of these services should receive the most emphasis from town leaders over the next 2 years. Excuse me. And residents could pick up to their top 3 choices. So the area that they think should receive the most emphasis, number 1 was traffic flow and ease of getting around town. 59% of respondents picked that as one of their top 3 choices. The second highest priority was maintaining streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure. And then third is public education. So this leads to something that we call the important satisfaction rating. And this is a tool that we use to help communities set priorities. And this analysis is based on 2 different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with services. And then as a follow-up question, we ask which services should receive the most emphasis from town leaders over the next couple of years. So essentially, which are the most important. And the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of low satisfaction, but at the same time are rated as the most important should be the highest priorities. So making improvements in those areas would impact the greatest number of residents. So this first table is for major categories of town services. By a wide margin, the top overall priority is the overall flow of traffic and ease of getting around town. Residents rate that, as we just saw, as the most important item, and it ranked 12th out of 13 in satisfaction. And then there were 2 areas that were all a high priority, 1 tier below traffic flow, but above the rest of the list. That includes maintenance of street, sidewalks, infrastructure, and then public transportation. We also curated an important satisfaction table for some specific areas on the survey. This one is around infrastructure, and excuse me, the top 3 priorities were sidewalks, street lighting, and then neighborhood streets. This table is specifically for public safety. Here, there's 1 area that fell into the high priority category, which is visibility of police in neighborhoods. A couple other areas that are in the medium category, but just missed falling into the high priority, were visibility of police in retail and then enforcing local traffic laws. And then for community services, which is mainly parks and recreation, there were 3 areas that fell into the high priority category, which were access and public parking for natural resources and parks, facilities for indoor programs and classes, and then senior recreation programs. So I've got a couple other findings to take a look at. We asked residents how satisfied they were with the assistance that they received from the person who took their 911 call. This is obviously based on respondents who have contacted 911 within the past year, which was about almost 18% of respondents. And you can see the results are extremely positive. 96% of respondents were satisfied with the assistance they received from the person who took their 911 call. That includes 72% who were very satisfied. Here we asked about residents' perception of the town's current pace of growth and development. So the yellow area means residents feel the pace of growth and development is too slow in those areas. The gray means it's just right. And then the dark red means they feel like the pace of development is too fast. So if you look at these top couple of rows, about 2/3 of residents feel like the pace of development for residential, both single family and multifamily, is too fast. And then towards the bottom here, a little over 60% feel like the pace of redevelopment of abandoned or underutilized properties is too slow. We also asked about primary sources of information about town issues, services, and events. The top source of information you can see is the newspaper, Scarborough Leader, followed by the town's website. Those are by far the top two. The third and fourth primary sources are an email subscription through the newsletter and Facebook. And as a follow-up question, we asked, what are your most preferred methods of receiving information? And you can see there's three that really stand out. It's the newspaper, town's website, then the e-newsletter. So this is pretty closely aligned with the way people are currently getting information, but I do think there's a little opportunity to reach more people through the newsletter. Right now, 33% of respondents say they're currently getting information through the e-newsletter, but 44% say that would be one of their most preferred methods of getting information. And then for those respondents who have contacted the town within the past year, we asked them how they feel about the interaction with town employees. And you can see these results are very positive. The dark blue means that employees always exhibit these behaviors. The light blue means they usually do. So for example, if you look at this top row, 93% of residents feel that Scarborough employees either always or usually are courteous and professional. 89% feel like it's always or usually easy to find someone to address their requests. If you look at this fourth row down, overall 80% of residents felt like they were satisfied with their experience. And then we asked about support for capital improvement projects. The blue are those who are supportive, the red are not supportive, the gray are neutral. So the most support is definitely with the community center. 69% are either very or somewhat supportive, compared to 14% who are not supportive. So that's everything that I had for the main presentation. Just a quick recap. We saw that residents have a very positive perception of Scarborough. 86% are satisfied with overall quality of life. We also saw that satisfaction with town services is much higher in Scarborough than it is in other communities. There's a lot of examples of that, but a couple that really stood out were the overall quality of town services, and then especially customer service from town employees, which is one of the highest numbers that I've ever seen. And then top priorities for town services, traffic flow and ease of getting around town, maintenance of street, sidewalks, and infrastructure. And then when we asked residents, what are the top issues facing the town over the next 5 years? It was pace of growth and expansion, the affordability of town services, and affordable housing. So that is everything that I had. Obviously, of course, there's always room for improvement, but obviously overall the results are extremely positive. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Councilor.
Yeah, Jason, a great report. Could you get back to what the neutral value meant?
So neutral, we interpret that as meeting expectations. It does mean that people have an opinion, because there's also an option of selecting don't know. And for those charts, we exclude the don't knows. So those charts you walk through are based on people who had an opinion. Gave a rating of a 5 through a 1. So neutral is a 3 out of 5, 3 on the 5-point scale.
Okay. Another follow-up on it is there, because I heard a lot from folks that went to take the survey that for whatever reason thought it was a little too long. You know, I guess 20 minutes was too long for some. Was there any way to tell who started the survey but did not finish the survey? Was there any way for you guys to tell that?
For online surveys, yes. For mailed surveys, you know, if we get them back, they're fully filled out. Otherwise, they don't mail them back to us. But for online surveys, there are some people who start the survey and don't finish. in most cases, they leave the survey pretty early on. There aren't many people who get, say, 2/3 of the way through and then drop off. But it is a long survey, but it's typical length for one of our community surveys. They're usually 6 to 7 pages. But that is, of course, something you have to balance. You know, if you had a 2-page survey, we'd have a much better response, but way less information. 10-page survey would give us all kinds of information, but it'd be hard to get people to fill it out. So we kind of shoot for that 6 to 7 page range.
Right. So if the town of Scarborough was to take the approach of doing this maybe every 2 or every 3 years, and see that we're kind of limited to 7 pages, which understandable, that's about a 20-minute effort. Where's the threshold on a category that may not be the most efficient use of the time, effort, and money to do 1, 2 years from now? If something is up in the 80 percentile, can you say, hey, we're good, but we can focus more on the ones that were lower to see if we've made improvements, drill down a little deeper with more detailed questions? What do you recommend? What's usually done?
Are you talking about which types of questions to include on the survey? Like if you were to do it again next time in a couple of years?
Right. If we're going to do it again, we all see that 93% of the people are very satisfied with the customer service. Now,
right.
I don't want that to get lost. But again, in the interest of space on the 7 pages,
right.
Because when we did this initially, you know, you can't boil the ocean with 7 pages. And we included other entities in the survey because, you know, we're all one town. We wanted to get some feedback. But we come back again, we want to see what have we done? Have we done anything right? I would just wonder if that's also a typical survey, or is it usually just the same questions year after year?
Usually most of the questions are the same. Like I would say maybe 80%. In particular, the questions on the 5-point scale are really easy to trend over time. You can change as many as you would like, of course, but usually most of those stay the same. I mean, some questions are more timely, so it makes sense not to ask them next time. Like obviously the COVID question. There could be, you might find that some of the data you got isn't useful in certain areas, so maybe you don't need those questions next time. Whereas there might be something else you want to even dig a little deeper in or learn more about. So of course, you know, we work with you on that, but I'd say on average, 80 to 85% of the questions are the same each time.
And my final question for you, and this is mainly for the public, but my understanding also is because this is theoretically a statistically sound survey, that when I'm looking at a percentage one way or the other, positive or negative, that truly is, in theory, a reflection of all the residents in the town and not the 862 people that took the survey. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. It represents the entire town. There is, of course, a margin of error, but it's a small margin of error. It's just a little over 3%. And the reason it's that small is because we had such a good response to the survey. You know, almost 900 completed surveys.
Okay, and I was going to ask you if there's any other questions. Just walk us through that GIS mapping so we know how to use it, because I have a feeling some of our residents will like that feature. So I'm good.
So why don't we do some questions, and then maybe if we have time, we'll go to the maps. Okay, Councilor Anderson and then Councilor.
Yeah. Jason, I guess a quick question. I love the comparisons across national and regions, but when we look at the survey results, is there something that's considered like a best in class score? So like anything 50% and above is actually considered good? Because some of the question answers were pretty low. And I would think that even though compared to national and regional averages, we were ahead, but like, should we still be striving to make improvements in that area to deliver best in class service to citizens? So I don't know, is there like, when we look at it at the data, should we be saying like, if it's below 50%, we need to do something, or there's clearly room for improvement?
So as far as, I'm not sure if I quite understood that. So if the satisfaction ratings, let's say they're low, but still like 50% or less are satisfied, how do you look at that when comparing it to the other communities? Is that, or am I misunderstanding that?
I just know from surveys that we do at work sometimes for some of the products and services that we offer, we'll use like NPS and another satisfaction methodology. And we usually say anything for one method above 70% is usually a really good response. We should be satisfied with that for any question. And so
Right.
the same thing on this, is there like something, a benchmark that's considered best in class, that anything above or below a certain number would be considered best in class?
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's definitely a good question. Well, one of the things, I think the benchmarking data is valuable is because it does add context to the data. There's some areas that always rate much higher than others. For example, code enforcement. The national average is in the 40% range. It's very unusual for a community even to be above 60% when it comes to code enforcement. So for example, if 70% were satisfied with code enforcement, that would be a really good number. Whereas for like fire services, the ratings are always high. You know, if 70% were satisfied with fire services, that would be a really low number. You know, that would be much lower than normal. So it's hard to say there's a certain, it's hard to say it's equal for all services as far as a certain range, I guess is what I'm saying. For some areas, 80% would be a great number, but that would be a bad number for something else, if that makes sense.
And then my other question, when it comes to the non-random sample participants that participated in the online version after we got to the number we needed, how do we look at those results to compare that to the random sample, just to see if there's any differences between the two populations? Because my hope is that they're much more similar than they are different, and it would be good to know that they are similar where they're different.
Right. Yeah, we do still need to finish processing that data. Usually what happens is what you said, the results are similar. Usually the demographics are skewed, so you have to keep that in mind. It usually skews older, almost always it does. A lot of times the satisfaction ratings are a little bit lower than the statistically valid survey, but the priorities are very similar. So we still need to process that, but that's almost always how those turn out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I would be interested to see, is more the higher level. Are the priorities aligned? Do they all come out kind of the same? The numbers will be different for sure, but
right.
Just, that they're more similar than they are different, I think would be interesting to see when you guys have that data finalized.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. We still need to do that, and I should be able to send that out. I would think early next week.
Thank you again for all your hard work on this. It was excellent working with you. I really appreciate all the time and effort that you put into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Jason, this is incredible data. Thank you very much. Looking at when we did some comparison to the regional and national results when it came to satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a little bit to the regional and national comparison when it comes to more of the abstract concerns such as growth and resident growth? So for instance, in this, it might be somewhere else, but here there's not necessarily a comparison to the regional concern about growth or the regional concern about affordable housing. So it seems like we benchmarked ourselves with the satisfaction, which makes perfect sense. Are there benchmarks out there for them? I don't want to call them abstract because they're very real issues, right, but they're direct satisfaction. Did we do that, or can we do it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so those the benchmarking that we provided is based on questions that we ask most frequently, kind of our standard benchmarking questions. Those other ones are ones we don't ask as often, or when we do, they're more customized for each community. You know, I could try to find some like specific communities that have asked similar questions to look at some comparisons, but we just don't have a national benchmarking database for those types of questions. Just because they are asked not as often, and when they are more customized for each specific community.
Yeah, I've seen the deeper material. I was in here half distracted, so I was trying to look at the deeper material. You guys do have some form of that in the more robust report that we have. So my question is half moved, but that makes sense. Yeah.
So, I mean, just to the point of growth, I could just read it in. So it looks like, and this is in your report on page 43. Our Scarborough's score was 25.2. The Northeast region was 53.6, and the national average was 43.8. So it looked like we scored significantly less satisfied with the elementary growth.
Yeah. And I have one more. To public transportation, you know, Scarborough doesn't necessarily geographically lend itself to a whole lot of public transportation, right? And I think that's just the reality. We're not going to have bus stops in West Scarborough or too many bus stops in West or North Scarborough. So is there any accounting for, you know, for instance, I could see us trying to serve the heart of Scarborough, so to speak, the high growth areas of Scarborough for public transportation. But, and I'm sure we can pull this out with a GIST map, but out where I live on the Gorham Scarborough line, I don't foresee us, you know, I guess I would always rate my access to public transportation as a 1 because it's not going to happen, right? Do you find that in more geographically dispersed areas like that, we have a lot of sprawl here, is that common, that type of result?
Yeah, this is a common result. I'm not super surprised by how the results come out for the public transportation. You know, the other thing to keep in mind about that is the charts that I showed were excluded people who selected don't know and don't have an opinion. For that one, almost half of residents said don't know to public transportation. So when you look at the importance satisfaction table, it was the 3rd highest priority. But the reason I didn't list it as a top priority during my summary slide was because of that. There were a lot of people who didn't answer the question, didn't have an opinion about it. So I think that's one thing we also have to keep in mind when looking at that.
But that's actually very helpful because you would assume if you're going to answer, I don't know, if you're in an area such as mine that I don't expect it, so I'm not going to answer the question. Okay, that's helpful. That helps a lot. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Councilor Hamel.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Just want to echo the prior comments. You know, great piece of work. Glad that we picked you, and you know, I think the results really speak for themselves. And for me, they really affirmed a couple of things that I had assumptions about. You know, we heard the public tell us about, you know, they're happy with the high level of services and the performance of by the town of those, and a very clear direction in terms of what the priority should be, not only for town services, but also for the top issues facing Scarborough over the next 5 years: pace of growth and expansion, affordability of town services, affordable housing. I mean, this just kind of really, it's done for me and I've seen lots of surveys, big frustration with most surveys, I just can't really use it to get focused and aligned around what you need to do next. So great work, tremendous effort by the communications committee and the town staff and everybody. I think it's quite clear that addition of a new communications dedicated resource at the director level made a huge difference. So I think the challenge for us is how do we take this now and channel this into the work that's coming forward in the next couple of weeks in terms of what are our priorities going to be for the year. You know, we were very granular about that. Last year, you know, we had 5 or 6 priorities that were pretty high that we were able to set up and knock down one after the other. These, I think, will be more challenging because they're more complicated and they're more complex and it'll be tougher to get our arms around. But this, I think, is very helpful in terms of preparing us and galvanizing us as a council to get at these. I did have a couple of questions though about administration. I know I heard some noise about confidentiality. I know this is a challenge. You want to make sure you get a good cross section, but you know there were a couple issues with commitments to confidentiality. But then when you get the written survey in the mail, your address is on it, the survey that you sent back. So there was that issue, and there was also a commitment in there that people would receive a letter or an email within 10 days after receiving the survey, and a lot of people didn't get that. So I know there's a balance here between trying to make sure you're hitting all the neighborhoods on the one hand, but can you speak to that a little bit from a methodology standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So as far as the address, that's something that we never share with anybody, any client or anyone else. The reason we ask for that is for a couple of reasons. One is for the statistically valid survey. It's important that it's based only on households that we randomly selected to receive the survey. That way it can't be skewed by sharing a link with your neighbor, your neighborhood, your families. So if someone were to fill out a survey online, but they weren't a part of the random sample, we would check that address. And if it wasn't a household that we randomly selected, then it would not be one of these 862 surveys that were included in the statistically valid survey report.
Okay.
So that's really the biggest reason, but then also it allows us to analyze the data by geographic area, having.
So you're trying to validate, but to some extent, you have to, do what you described that you've done in order to make sure that that you're getting valid responses. Thank you. But all in, piece of work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I just want to point out, I think the feedback that I've received from councilors anyways is that they've been very pleasantly surprised with the quality of work that was completed here. And that's despite the fact that we rated one of the elected officials ranked almost one of the lower categories in the survey.
Well, so then our vote of confidence doesn't mean much.
That wasn't on the presentation.
So I know I diluted that point a little bit, I guess. So I think I gleaned a lot from this, and I wasn't expecting to. I was supportive of it, but I didn't think it would be as telling as it is. And usually I go around and play with the data after when it comes out because I need to look at it certain ways, and you knocked it out of the park. I didn't have the need to do that. You had everything already prepared. Any question that I had, I was able to find through the report that you provided. So thank you for that. And maybe we can play with do you have time to walk us through the maps as Councilor Johnson has requested? Is that something you have the ability to do remotely?
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I will. I will. Let me just pull them up here in just a second.
I have a follow-up while you bring that up.
Sure.
Jason, if you don't mind.
Sure.
By the way, that was a compliment. This Councilor Clucci is an actuary, and he's a numbers cruncher. So he says you hit it out of the park. I take that as a compliment. Back to the leadership thing, which, hey, nothing embarrasses me. I saw the ratings on that, but a general question are those responses in general, meaning whoever is in the office, or is it really focused on the current content of the council, do you think?
I think it could be interpreted both ways.
So
yeah, I mean, it's obviously a very broad question. It's not real specific. And the thing about that question, there weren't a lot of people who were dissatisfied. There are a lot more of the threes, which is the neutral rating, it was a good solid rating. So there really weren't many ones or twos on the 5-point scale on that question. So.
Thanks. I know that was an awkward question even for you.
I feel like he just handled you with kitty gloves a little bit there. Well, Jason, you got to drag the average down somehow. So there's got to be some ones and twos.
Right.
Jason, I think in addition to the GIS maps, if you want to run through, if you can kind of give a high level overview of the interface with the dashboard, that might be helpful as well.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. I will do that. So can you see these? Can you guys see this map?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is the one that shows.
Example, Paul was asking about public transportation, right? For different areas of town. I don't know if it's easy to cue that one up.
Yeah. There's over 100 maps, so we can go through them quickly. So this is the one that just shows the location of households that completed the survey. You can see by these black lines, these are the boundaries of the census block groups, and there are 9 census block groups. So essentially we broke these results into 9 different areas. And what these numbers represent are the average rating for people who live in those areas. So if an area is dark blue, it doesn't literally mean every single person is satisfied. It means when you take the average score, it falls within the very satisfied ranking. So that's just kind of how these are set up. Let me just move. So this is the one about customer service. I mean, this was no surprise. Everyone throughout the town's extremely satisfied with customer service. Here are the results for overall communication. This first question was the major categories of services, so kind of the big picture broad overview. Code enforcement. Now this is one where it's actually good to see this much blue. You know, for code enforcement, the ratings are just never as high as some of the other areas. So this much blue is good for codes. You do see a couple of areas of the yellowish, which is more of an average rating. For traffic flow, I know this is all yellow, there's no blue, but a lot of times you see some orange or red for this question. So this actually is not too bad. Overall quality of library services, you know, here's the results. Street, sidewalks, infrastructure, mostly satisfied, a little less satisfied in this one section. Parks and recreation, programs and facilities, kind of similar ratings all throughout the town. Public safety, dark blue, this is the highest possible rating, so very high ratings in all areas. Public transportation, there's not any one particular area that stands out. It's just kind of average ratings throughout the town. Public education, these are good. Solid waste services, a little higher ratings in this area, but otherwise pretty much the same throughout Scarborough. Stormwater management, flood control. This is public beaches and waterfront parks. This is all positive, more of a mix of the lighter blue and the darker blue. So now we're on to the next question, which was perceptions of the town, overall appearance of the town. I don't know if you guys want me to keep going with these or switch to the dashboard, but this is kind of the
Switch, right?
okay.
Yeah, let's go through.
Okay, so this is the idea behind this. You can look at it in more detailed once you get into the more specific questions on the survey. All right, so let's stop sharing this.
Can't do that like that.
All right, so can everyone see this okay? Now we have the dashboard pulled up.
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay, so this has all the same information that's in that big PDF report. But you can look at all the information here by just clicking on this link. And then you can also drill down to the data in ways that you can't do with the PDF report. And this is especially helpful once you have multiple years worth of data. I mean, it's really good now, but then for some of our longtime clients, they can keep several years worth of data here in this one place, just kind of easily compare the results. If we did the survey again, that some of that information would be in the PDF report, but it's just a little easier to access here. So I'll just kind of click through a few examples of what this is. So here's where trends would be. You don't have trends. These are just kind of basic results from the survey. Can you see that a little better now? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So here you pick the category. This is major categories of services. You can pick different questions like customer service, look at the ratings. This is pretty much the same information that's in the report. One thing that's easier to access here, clear this here. If you go to results by key demographics, you can look at the demographic breakout for these questions in a lot of different ways here. So let's look at, let's look at infrastructure, the options under infrastructure. Let's look at street lighting. So here you see the satisfaction ratings broken out by race, ethnicity, male, female, by age group, by employment status, by household income, and then households with children versus households without children. So here you get a kind of a quick glance, see if there are major differences for different demographic groups. We can switch to, let's say, neighborhood streets. You can see there's not really much difference based on a lot of these categories. Let's click off of this. Let's look at COVID-19 response. See how this overall town response to COVID-19. So the younger, so 86% of those under 35 were satisfied with in response to COVID-19. Interesting, the youngest and the oldest age groups were the most satisfied, but they're good all across the board, you know, pretty consistent. But here you can see the differences. For income level, there were just no differences at all when it comes to COVID-19 response. So this is one of the aspects of the dashboard that is useful that's not in the report, is looking at these breakouts by demographic group. Another thing I think is useful is the mapping. We just took a look at the maps. Here they're broken out just a little bit differently. Let's look at condition of neighborhood streets again. Here we broke into 3 areas, which are census tracts, a little bigger groups and census block groups. So just a different way of looking at the results broken out geographically. If we were to do the survey again, then what this map would show you is not just the satisfaction for the different areas, but how the satisfaction has changed from one survey to the next, which is a really, really useful tool. And then another thing that is a little different that's not in the report. So these are these important satisfaction ratings that we're looking at. Top priority was traffic flow, followed by streets and sidewalks, third with public transportation. You can find out what the highest priorities are for more specific groups. You click on this filter page button. And I know we're going through a lot here. There's a lot of information here, so it takes a lot to really kind of get used to this. I'm just kind of hitting some highlights here.
This is helpful.
Sure. So let's see what the priorities are for households with an income of household income under 60,000. So here overall there are 862 respondents. We're going to select just these 2 groups. So those under 60,000. It's 120 respondents. Let's go back and see if their priorities are any different. So traffic flow is still number 1, but now we can see public transportation is actually 2, and streets and sidewalk infrastructure are 3. So there's a little difference between that and the overall sample. The clear the filter, go back to everyone, and then just, you know, break it out by different ways, different age groups, race, you know, male, female. So that's one of the features that's different on the dashboard that's not in the report. So that's just kind of I guess a quick overview of the dashboard. I don't know if you want to look at anything else, but it takes a little bit to get used to, but there really is a ton of useful information here. Some of our clients will put a link on the website so residents can kind of sort through it. Others use it more as an internal tool to kind of drill down deeper into the data, or you can do both.
Councilor Hammond.
So I had a question about this. I have to admit, I know this is just out. It just kind of came out a couple days ago. So, you know, I haven't had a chance to go through the details. So it's a real eye-opener to see how easy it is for you to go through the thing. What is our plan for sharing this with the public, making it broadly available?
Liam, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we ultimately will have a dedicated, we believe anyway, we're going to have a dedicated page on the town website to the community survey where not only the reports that Jason provided, his presentation, as well as a link to the dashboard. The only question we have right now is what that interface looks like. Some communities have a landing page kind of embedded in their website for some of these tools. Others, it's kind of a link to go outside to the ETC website. That's the only thing we're working out, but we expect most, if not all of this data will be available to the public by tomorrow in one way, shape, or form.
And the full report is in the packet for the meeting as well.
Full report and the presentation's been updated. So all of that's publicly available and has been since Friday.
Thanks, that's really helpful. And sometimes there's so much data, it's hard to kind of really know the strength and power of something like this, you know, for folks that are experts, you know, and statistical backgrounds, that sort of thing. You know, some who's GIS guy. So and I'm not planning to send this to them right now, but seeing you simulate this is really eye-opening. So thank you. And it's just another thing that restores my confidence in the methodology that we used and how useful this will be to us as leadership group, but also to folks in the community who are close followers and have a lot of good ideas, and I'm sure we'll have their own thoughts about some of the analysis.
Are there any other questions for Jason? Well, it's rare that we all, go ahead, Liam.
Yeah, I just want to, I know that Jason received some comments. I just want to really commend Jason. I'm sure that you have a team behind you that we didn't have the privilege of meeting, but so you're the public face, but your firm really stood out to us because of some of these tools and access, and you just did a phenomenal job being responsive to our needs and demands and met all our deadlines. So thank you very much for all your time and effort.
We were demanding.
No, I don't believe that.
Councilor Caterina.
Yeah, as the person who actually got some money put aside in a budget for this, it was money well spent as far as I'm concerned. And I apologize that I couldn't see anything you were presenting tonight. I was sort of following along on the paper. But I look forward to diving in more on this, and I'm just really excited that we actually have a so-called scientific survey with confidence percentages and whatever on it, because it's one thing to take a survey, but it's another thing altogether to get one that's valid, that's statistically valid. So thank you.
Councilor Johnson.
My only final comment, Jason, you guys don't charge enough. That's all.
I would like to. I've never been. I've been to most states, a lot through work, but just through vacation too, of course. But I've never been to Maine. It's one of like 10 states I've ever been to. So it's absolutely. I'd like to come out there next time.
We will keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind. All right.
We'd love to meet you in person. So, well, thank you for everything. We have a regular meeting starting in 15 minutes, so we'll adjourn from the workshop and see you all in 15 minutes. And it was a pleasure, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoy working on this project, and it's been pretty great working with everyone. So, yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you.
I do.
You had notes here. You need the notes.
No, I think we're gonna be fine.
Okay.
One note was for you.
Yeah.
All right, are you bringing a slide?
I just did.
You just did? Yeah. So we're all good? All right. I'll call this meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, January 5th. This is our regular town council meeting. We are working with technology that was light years ahead 2 years ago, but today it's behind where we're accustomed to. So we have an owl that is capturing the video and sound in chambers, which is a device that's in between us. So we're gonna kind of rotate around and try to speak up so that everybody can hear that might be watching at home or in the audience live. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next up is roll call.
Counselor Sizer, Here. Counselor Anderson,
Here.
Counselor Paul Johnson,
Here.
Counselor Jean Marie Caterina,
Oh, I'm out here.
Counselor Himmel,
Here.
and Counselor Kenneth Johnson,
Here.
and Chairman Pucci.
Here.
All present. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is item 4, general public comments. And I'm going to introduce something a little bit different. We've traditionally reserved any counselor feedback on public comments until the end of the meeting. And there's been some discussion at various committees about trying to allow not interaction, but us to respond a little more before, so somebody doesn't have to wait 2 hours to hear our thoughts. So after public comments, the general public comments are completed, I will allow counselors to give any feedback if they should choose. So with that, are there any members of the public that are here to speak to something that is not on the agenda today? And is anybody online? I'm sorry. Okay. Seeing none, item 5 is the minutes from December 15th, 2021, special meeting with the planning board, and December 15th, 2021, town council meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, would you call the roll?
Counselor Sizer, Yes. Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Paul Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Katerina,
Yes.
Counselor Himmel,
Yes.
Counselor Ken Johnson,
Yes.
and Chairman Pucci.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Item 6 is adjustments to the agenda, and we do have an adjustment to the agenda that Counselor Johnson, Vice Chair Johnson, would like to introduce.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to add to the agenda a proclamation of appreciation for the retiring Fire Chief Mike Thurlow, who has given more than 4 decades of service to the town of Scarborough.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Would you call the roll, please? Sorry, Counselor Katerina.
Yes, I would like to thank Mike Thurlow for his service to the town of Scarborough. I know I've worked with him closely since 2013 when I was first elected to the council. And of course, I know him for many years prior to that, as my husband was on-call firefighter and captain of Engine 5 for a number of years. So I thank him again for his service, and he will be missed.
If I could point out, this item will be taken up after the town manager's report.
Correct. So we will actually, we will be taking this up before the town manager.
Before the town manager. Thank you.
And I believe we need to go.
Counselor Sizer, Yes. Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Paul Johnson,
Yes.
Counselor Katerina,
Yes.
Counselor Himmel,
Yes.
Counselor Kenneth Johnson,
Yes.
and Chairman Pucci.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And just we'll be taking roll calls for all of our votes because we have a remote participant. Is our policy. Just so everybody knows. Next item is treasurer's warrants. I signed those prior to the meeting. And now I'd like to call one of our special guests up. Probably the best place. Yeah. I think so. So I'd like to read a proclamation. Be it resolved by the Council of the Town of Scarborough, Maine, and Town Council assembled that, whereas from time to time, the extensive contributions to the town of Scarborough by a particular individual are so outstanding as to warrant special recognition and honor. And whereas B. Michael Thurlow, retiring fire chief of the town of Scarborough, has served in the fire department for the last 46 years and is well respected by neighboring fire departments, fellow employees, volunteers, and residents. And whereas with a long-standing and strong family history in the fire service, his career began with the town of Scarborough in 1976, his 16th birthday, as a volunteer in the Pine Point station. During his time at Pine Point, he served as a lieutenant and a captain. In 1987 to present, he became the local Emergency Management Association director, moving up through the ranks and promoted to fire chief in September 2001. And whereas during his tenure as chief, he was recognized by his peers in 2015 as Fire Chief of the Year and received the Leadership Award from the Police Department in 2017. And whereas under the guidance of Chief Thurlow, the Scarborough Fire Department now has 38 full-time employees, 86 part-time employees, and just over 50 volunteers. And whereas Chief Thurlow has initiated proactive measures to address the modern-day challenges of emergency services field, along with other members of his department, have mentored and trained other agencies striving to be proactive in this area. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Scarborough Town Council and Town Council assembled that the town of Scarborough does hereby recognize retiring Fire Chief B. Michael Thurlow for his legacy of service with the fire department and surrounding communities, expressing our deepest appreciation for his dedication and commitment to the citizens of the town of Scarborough and its fire department, and extend to Mike and his family our best wishes for many years of happiness in the future. Signed and sealed this 5th day of January 2022 on behalf of the Scarborough Town Council of Scarborough, Maine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you like to say a few words? Sure. I very much appreciate this. Over the years, I've probably emceed dozens of award ceremonies, and it's much easier to give praise than it is to accept it. This is not my cup of tea by any stretch of the imagination, but I certainly appreciate it. The thing that I want to make sure everybody remembers is that public safety is a team sport. I know you folks had your report today on the community survey, and one of the things when I read that report, I'm so pleased of is how much the community appreciates what we do and how we do it. And I just want everybody to remember, it's not me that's out there delivering that service. It's the men and women on the force that are out there taking care of our citizens every day of the week. For them, eternally, it's been a privilege to serve, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just say a few words, if I could? Mike, I've been just thoroughly amazed through my 13 years working with you. Must admit a little, I won't say suspect, but knowing that you're born and raised here, worked for the call division, and not sure what to expect. And did I underestimate all of your skills, your business acumen, your professionalism, and to think of 46 years serving this community in that capacity, and just all appreciate this is, he's not just punching the clock and going home at the end of the day. He's either at the station or sleeping, listening, one ear open, listening to the scanner. And certainly appreciate, being a sacrifice and Michael through the years, this talk about team sport. Sure you couldn't have given us all the time and effort you have for that their sport as well. So you'll be really missed, and I hope you stay close.
Thank you. Any other comments? So I just like to say, something that sticks with me is when you get elected, you don't know a lot, right? Contrary to popular belief. A couple days.
The secret's out.
A couple days later, I got a card in the mail from Chief Thurlow, requesting to set up a meeting, and I thought that was just it was unique, and it was a really nice special touch. Took time out of your day, showed me around the station, introduced me to folks, and it was a great way to for me to start getting my teeth wet with politics or government. So that meant a lot to me. And I know that there's a lot of little things that you do that mean a lot to your sports and the community. And, you know, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Well, that's going to be a tough act to follow now. Town manager's report.
Yeah, certainly tough act. A few quick items. We did have a holiday week, so things were a little slower here at Town Hall. I happened to be off and had a perfect week, so appreciate all the staff helping out in the meantime. This is the time of year where we're doing annual performance evaluations of staff, so that's something that's keeping us all busy. We're also in the formative stages of the budget schedule and process. The scheduled calendar looks to be following very similar to what it's been in recent years. But departments are working on their budget submissions in earnest as we speak. So really after the first of the year, we think we kick things off. So it's kind of housekeeping, cleaning up from last year, but also preparing for the next, obviously. With regard to the survey tonight, you know, I'd be remiss not to acknowledge and say how proud I was of staff. Just I'm bowled over by the just overwhelming satisfaction that our residents, you know, have said toward the customer service. And to me, that's why we're all here. We're here to serve people. So gratifying, so thankful to the staff. As Mike said so eloquently, it's not me doing the work, it's them. And I very much appreciate all of their efforts, and it clearly shows. It's great to have that validation. Beyond that, I think there's some really good information that we're all going to dig into as soon as this budget year. I think there were some good priorities identified. And I'll be sharing with my staff, reviewing it in detail, and I think you'll hopefully see some of those priorities manifest themselves in budget requests in the coming weeks and months. I also want to update you on the cellular service. The council may recall 4 or 5 months ago, you approved the lease with AT&T. They say that they will be doing the install this month. We also have US Cellular, who's doing some technical review and analysis to see if it's a good location for them. Should that move forward, you'll see a lease before you, much like the AT&T process followed. So hopefully we'll start to see some more improved service depending on your provider, of course. I know that's an issue that might have been something that we could have surveyed. I think we may be doing some survey not statistically valid around cellular service, so we can start to get a better sense of the different areas of town. And we have a very large town, so I think there are decidedly different experiences around town. So we'd like to get a little more information about that as best we can. With regard to the master parks and facility plan, the council was kind enough to fund that. In fact, Councilor Anderson was the one that brought that idea ahead, and I think it had resounding support of the council. We have selected green play, as I mentioned in the past. We continue to modify the scope, particularly around the survey piece. $14,000 of their proposal had to do with another full-blown town-wide statistically valid survey. With the results of these surveys that we reviewed this evening, we're wondering whether we can focus that a little more intently, still have a quality product, and save some money in the process. So we'll report back to you, but I think we're going to have a very quality plan done, and much closer to budget I'm expecting at this point. Lastly, just upcoming workshops. At your next meeting, January 19, the council will convene, I think 5:30 or so, to do a goal setting session. This will be a process the council undertakes as a group to really identify what are your priorities for the coming year. And perhaps we can do a little bit of a review and retrospective of how you did on the ones last year as time allows. And also on February 2nd, you'll all be excited to know the annual elected officials stormwater training is scheduled. This is something you all look forward to every year, I'm sure. This will be done jointly with 3 or 4 other communities, and we'll do it, I believe, at 5:30 that evening to 6:30. Beyond that, if you have workshop ideas, I know council leadership, myself meet every other week. We'd like to start kind of programming out at least the next quarter or so. So if you have ideas, don't hesitate to bring them forward to one of the 3 of us, and we'll start to populate the calendars for you. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Seeing none, thank you, Tom. Next up is a non-action item to introduce a new Police Chief Holmquist and Fire Chief Kindle. Could you both come up?
Gentlemen, please come up and have a seat. As they take their seats, just a couple of introductory remarks. Both have been introduced to the community by way of pretty good media coverage. I think we've had fairly detailed reviews in the e-newsletter. But we really want to take a chance to put a face with the name and for you to meet them personally, though we're behind masks with poor audio and video. But nonetheless, this will be the first of many as we enter budget. You'll, at least Finance Committee will spend some quality time with both these gentlemen. Very pleased to introduce them to the community and also to the council. One of the tremendous opportunities I think we have, as Chief Thurlow alluded to, he and former Chief Moulton really worked very hard over their entire professional career to engender a culture of connectedness between police and fire. And these two gentlemen, starting within a month of each other, I think have an opportunity to kind of make that bond among themselves, between themselves, and really continue that tradition going forward. So I'm very pleased to introduce Chief Mark Holmquist. And Mark, I don't know if you have any comments for the council and for the public. Please offer them.
Thanks, sir. Good evening. It's nice to meet everyone finally. Well, with masks on, it's a little difficult, but I think we're used to it at this point. So happy to be part of this community now here in Scarborough. Been very impressed by the support, not only for myself, my family, and my team across the parking lot. Just appreciate the continued support that not only the council provides to us, but also the citizens of Scarborough. I'm very excited in this new role. At times I feel a little overwhelmed, but I think that's normal. But I have a great team around me, and they've really embraced me with open arms coming in, and I appreciate their support as well. A little bit about myself: 25 years with the state police. Very proud of that organization, and came to Scarborough because there were some commonalities with both departments that really intrigued me, and I felt comfortable coming here for those reasons. And a lot of it had to do with culture, the values, and just the level of professionalism that both organizations have put on display for at least my 25-year career. I look forward to working with Chief Kinlan in the future years, and continuing that team atmosphere that has already existed for many years, and we've talked about that, as well as with Chief Moulton. When I initially spoke with him several months ago, he talked about the team approach here, and then Chief Thurlow and my conversations with him has just reinforced that. And it's great that you talked about Chief Thurlow's paying attention to detail, the little things. I've noticed that he sends cards with the appropriate information on it and the proper timing, and he's very detail oriented, and that means a lot to our people, and that's a sign of a great leader. So Chief, we both have big shoes to fill. So, but no, I appreciate you taking time tonight to have me here. Just look forward to working with the council going forward. Thank you.
Rich.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to sit in front of you all. It's a horribly tough act to follow, Chief Thurlow. Chief Thurlow has mentored me even before I even worked for him. He was looked to from in the other places I worked. He was just a gigantic person in the fire service, and when he hired me, it was a true honor to be his deputy chief. And from the day that I was hired, he's provided me with the tools to compete and join this position eventually. Thank you for sharing the fact that he's going to be a hard act to follow, make my nerves even worse. But I'm really excited. One of the things when I interviewed for this position, and in the positions I've held in the past, I love being in the fire service, but I also love community. I want to be part of the community. I want to be involved in all the little things. The Project Grace, when I started here, it was a great opportunity, and I try and inject myself into those community events to be part of that. And I won't just be your fire chief. I'll be part of this community, and I'm excited for that opportunity. I really learned a lot from the Chief Thurlow, and I'm going to miss him. He really mentored me for the 3 years that I've been here, and the nerves are definitely there taking this role. So thanks very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, welcome to you both. We're going to get to know each other reasonably well. Budget season's just around the corner. Any councilors have any comments?
I'll just say, I had the privilege, as a freshman counselor, I had the privilege of touring the public safety building a couple days before Christmas. Chief Thurlow, Chief Holmquist, and Chief Quinlan spent an hour apiece with me, by department, showed me every nook and cranny. I got to go in and out of every room I asked for. I got to go home with some good stories for my kids. They were super jealous. But I just want to thank them for being so generous with their time. And I think that that's a true reflection of the leaders that we have in this town. And so I think that we are all in amazing hands, and I look forward to working with you both.
Councilor Johnson.
We missed Christmas, but Valentine's Day is coming up, so you can send me a Valentine's Day card.
Welcome aboard. I met you, Chief, at the memorial for Mr. Durant a couple weeks ago. I love the uniform. That really made an impression on everybody that was around. It was good. And welcome to you, sir. And we're looking forward to working with you both, especially around budget season. If you take a look at our survey, there's some gaps in there. I think we can be filled with your expertise. So looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome you both. And I think that your timing and our taking the time out to meet you following the survey and outstanding results you're seeing, not only is there tough shoes to fill, but high bars to jump. So we wish you luck with that. And I think also your appointments themselves are a very positive reflection on how the town is managed in terms of senior roles. We have folks that are coming up through the ranks, but also folks that are coming in from outside, and we try to balance those two things. So we welcome you both. We look forward to working with you very closely.
Yeah, I just wanted to welcome you both aboard as well. I'm really looking forward to working with you. I also want to thank Tom as well for his leadership, because transitioning two key leaders this past year is a pretty big accomplishment. And I trust that we went through proper due diligence to really make sure we got the best of the best. And so it's great to see that you guys are here, you're ready to go, and we're all ready to partner with you as we move forward.
Councilor Katarina.
Yes, I'd like to welcome both of them. I was thrilled to be able to go to Chief Holmquist's swearing in. And did they do Mr. Chief Quinlan? I apologize if I missed your swearing in. But that being said, I think we're extremely fortunate to have both gentlemen here. I know they both are well thought of. I know of Chief Holmquist from his work in the Maine State Police, from people I know in the Maine State Police. And of course, the guys and gals in the fire department were very excited with the appointment of Chief Quinlan. So yeah, and I just think we have fabulous police and fire departments compared to some others around. So not to say anything bad about anybody else, but I do think we're very special in what we do here in Scarborough. Operation Hope, the things that we do with our community policing, the fire department. I know they do all sorts of activities with members of the public and kids, and it's just a great place to be. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you both.
Thank you, Councilor. Yeah, thank you both for coming. Well, congratulations to you both. It's an exciting time in Scarborough. And it's good to hear, one of the things I picked up from the survey as well was, the desire to have more involvement or engagement in the public from our police and fire services. And it sounds like they're both kind of committed to following through on that, which is exciting. Next up is a public hearing and action on the new request for a food handler's license from Rebecca K. Lilly, DBA 2 Smart Cookies LLC, located at 4 Ridgeway Drive.
Everything is in order. As you noted in the packet, there were, she is in the residential zone. She did go before the zoning board of appeals and got a special exception. And this was the last piece to her being able to have a business.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. And do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Is the applicant here? Oh, wondering where to get the cookies. I'll follow up.
Thank you.
Prior counselor always had samples of always well received.
It helps your chances. Okay, seeing no other discussion, Tony, would you call the roll?
Councilor Sider?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Councilor Paul Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Katarina?
Yes.
Councilor Hamel?
Yes.
Councilor Kenneth Johnson?
Yes.
And Chairman Pucci?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next up is order number 22-002, act on the names posted to the various committees, boards by the Appointments and Negotiations Committee on December 15th, 2021.
Excuse me, there's one more.
Oh, okay. I skipped over one. I'm sorry. Thank you. So order number 21-111 is act on the new request for the following marijuana establishment license. KTK Noise Cultivation, LLC, located at 148B Pleasant Hill Road, for an adult use marijuana cultivation facility. And Liam, would you introduce us?
Sure. So this is a license request that's already gone to public hearing and had first reading due to some other schedule constraints around the holidays. Staff was not able to coordinate, and again, on May, was not able to coordinate the inspection until this week. Upon the staff inspection, we really would request that we table this item for approval until the next meeting. I don't think the applicant was fully ready and prepared for their license approval.
Having said that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to table this item until January 19th town council meeting.
Would you call the roll?
Councilor Sider?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Councilor Paul Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Katarina?
Yes.
Councilor Hamel?
Yes.
Councilor Ken Johnson?
Yes.
And Chairman Pucci?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. I may sound like Groundhog's Day, but order number 22-002 is act on the names posted to the various committees, boards by the Appointments and Negotiations Committee on December 15th, 2021. Councilor Hamel.
Thanks very much. You know, earlier this evening, I asked if it was possible to not read the names in the interest of expediency, and I thought, how incredibly stupid is that? Because we're taking time out this evening to say farewell to a fire chief and to welcome a couple of new department heads. So it would be highly inappropriate for us not to read the names in for the folks who have been kind enough to renew their committee assignments, and also for people who are joining in. We've got a really nice combination of folks that have been here for a while, but also folks that have just moved to town who have been very active, getting engaged at committee level. And we feel this is something that's very important for the success of our town, is engaging and involving the public. So with that note, I'm going to read through these at a reasonable pace.
That's a form of a motion.
Pardon?
That would be a form of a motion.
That is in the form of a motion. Thank you very much. And thank you for the reminder. Two things I'd like to say at the outset. There are about 35 names here that we're going to mention. There are a combination of folks that are renewing their committee memberships, and most of the committee incumbents have the ability to, like a right of first refusal to continue in their role. And 9 out of 10 folks who are eligible to do that did so. So I think that's a real credit to folks that are committed and want to maintain continuity at a committee level. So thank you for that. For the ADA Advisory Committee, we're going to reappoint Mr. Gary Hoyt as full voting member with a term to expire 2024. Board of Assessment Review, reappoint Mr. Matthew Chamberlain as a full voting member and move James Pergolitis from first alternate to full voting member with terms to expire in 2024, and appoint Mr. Richard Silkman as the first alternate with a term to expire in 2024. Coastal Waters and Harbor Committee, reappoint Mr. Vincent Plow, Mr. Andrew Fortunato, Mr. Michael Slavin as full voting members, terms to expire 2024, and appoint Mr. Marvin Gates as second alternate, term to expire 2022. Community Services and Recreation Advisory Board, reappoint Mr. Richard Murphy as full voting member with a term to expire 2024. Move Ms. Karen Shoup from first alternate to full voting member with a term to expire 2023. And move Ms. Jean Ginn Marvin from second alternate to first alternate with a term to expire in 2024. And appoint Ms. Maria Bodlin as second alternate to fill a term to expire in 2022. Historical Preservation Implementation Committee, appoint Ms. Elizabeth Hersey as full voting member, term to expire 2024. Housing Alliance Committee, reappoint Mr. Eric Boucher as full voting member, term to expire 2024. Long Range Planning Committee, reappoint Ms. Robin Saunders from second alternate to first alternate with a term to expire 2024, and appoint Ms. Portia Hirschman as second alternate, term to expire 2024. Parks and Conservation Land Board, reappoint Ms. Rachel Hendrickson and Mr. Noah Perla as full voting members, terms to expire 2024. Remove Sean Flaherty and appoint Ms. Jessica Sargent as full voting member, term to expire 2023. Personnel Appeals Board, reappoint Mr. Anton Bodor and Mr. Peter Freilinger as full voting members, terms to expire 2024. Planning Board, reappoint Ms. Jennifer Ladd as full voting member, term to expire 2024. Senior Advisory Board, reappoint Ms. Eliza Bolda as full voting member, term to expire 2024. Shellfish Conservation Commission, reappoint Mr. Paul Erickson as full voting member, term to expire 2024. And move Mr. Darren Granada from first alternate to full voting member, term to expire 2022. Sustainability Committee, reappoint Mr. Ron Allen, Mr. David Kirstein, and Mr. Rick Meinking as full voting members, term to expire 2024. Transportation Committee, reappoint Mr. Alan Paul, Long Range Planning Committee Representative, Mr. Steve Berg, Business Community Representative, and Ms. Jennifer Ladd, Scarborough Resident Representative as full voting members, term to expire in 2024. Finally, Zoning Board of Appeals, reappoint Mr. David Burke and Mr. Peter Freilinger as full voting members, terms to expire in 2024, and appoint Mr. Richard Silkman as second alternate, term to expire in 2022. With that, also, I'd like to say, last but not least, thanks to the Appointments and Committee, the Appointments and Negotiations Committee. Tony Justice does the lion's share of the work, providing us with detailed packets and recommendations on staffing. And I'm joined by Ken Johnson and John Anderson, so we look forward to a good year, and we're pleased to say we're hitting the ground running in 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none?
Council Steiger?
Yes.
Council Anderson?
Yes.
Council Paul Johnson?
Yes.
Council Katarina?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Council Kenneth Johnson?
Yes.
And Chairman Pucci?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Next is new business, order number 22-003. Act on the request to authorize the town manager to sign the memorandum of agreement between the Maine Turnpike Authority, the Maine Department of Transportation, and the municipalities of Gorham, Scarborough, South Portland, and Westbrook regarding a Gorham connector. Tom, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, this matter was actually subject of a workshop with council. I believe we did that in late November. I don't recall the date. Representatives from the Maine Turnpike Authority were here. I think there was a full packet of material that described the history and background of the project. This project has been going on literally decades, but this most recent focus really spans about 10 years. I've had the privilege of being involved for most of that time. The project has kind of languished a bit from a public perspective and municipal involvement perspective. And the point of this is really to kind of get the band back together, so to speak, is to bring us all back around the table. And I know we have representatives from the Maine Turnpike Authority here this evening. I should note, Coming out of that workshop, a number of counselors offered some suggested changes. I did offer those up to the Maine Turnpike Authority. They were very quick to receive those, and those have been incorporated, I believe, in paragraphs 3, 4, and 5 in particular. I can also report that last evening, the Westbrook City Council approved this very memorandum of agreement, and there was one slight change. The version in your packet does include that. I'm sure they can recite what that is. As I recall, it was an improvement to the language, and it was actually one of the suggested areas that we had added in the first instance. So again, this is before you this evening, looking for your support so I can sign this and participate. A final note, this is just the start. There'll be at least 2 committees. There'll be an advisory committee and a technical committee that will be looking to populate with municipal folks. And so it may well be that one or more of you would, if you're interested, there'll be an ability to stay very involved with this project as it moves forward.
Mr. Mills, do you have anything to add? Would you like to introduce some of the changes that you've made since we last met?
Peter, why don't you come sit here, please?
Thank you for coming.
Well, happy to be here. Always good to see good government in action. Watching these people that have been honoring, it's been a pleasure. In Westbrook, one councilor suggested some added words, and we were happy to have the words in here because they simply reflect what we're obliged to do anyway as part of the review process, the review of the applications. And the language that was added by the Westbrook councilor was at the end of paragraph 5 on the 3rd page. And it's just a few words added. We said that to the extent practicable, NTA will design the goal and connected to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to cultural and natural resources, including wetlands, the Red Brook watershed. They said, can you add in farmlands, which we are obliged to examine, historic areas and structures, and that's also part of the review law. And finally, wildlife corridors and habitat. And we respond directly to the fish and game people about those issues. So we were happy to insert those words on, and with that amendment, Westbrook gave us a unanimous report and we're going to go on in a couple of weeks. Again, we reviewed it preliminarily, we've been workshopped it, and we're going to go back to talk to them. I may even take this, we redesigned it, the format of it, so that it could later be signed by other communities that might want to participate. I was thinking about going up Route 25 to Standish and maybe Wyndham, because those are towns that are affected by the Scarborough and Gorham are the key. This thing comes right through town, basically, in both cases. And so we are really looking forward to engaging with you, getting comments, adverse or otherwise, as part of the public process, so that we can respond to them, be responsive to public review of this proposal. We really appreciate the work that was done by Mr. Bell. I mean, back in 2012, this thing, there was a thorough examination of various options, and this is really the culmination. Mr. Hall was a part of that, and there were other people who were Jean Marie was part of it too. And so there's been a lot of public engagement already, but that work product now is we're getting to a point where we are prepared, if the regulators willing, we're prepared to move forward with it. I often said the highway itself is the key to doing the other things that came out of that 2012 work. The 2 other strategies were transit improvement and land planning. And the key to land planning is understanding where your traffic is going to be going for the next 50 to 100 years. And that's what this process is. we'll try to resolve.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? Mr. Mills?
I do. Yeah, thank you for that information. For the public to understand, this is an offering of support for the project and to engage with you to make it work.
Yes, and
Definitely
you're
for the town
basically
square.
supporting the process that we're initiating
Right.
to engage the project.
Right. So there's a lot more work to be done. And so there's be a lot more communication coming out for the public. And I was just wondering, hopefully, if we ever get through this COVID, our plan is to get back into some kind of human contact engagement, maybe have some focus groups or have people come in. I was wondering maybe if we could count on somebody from your team to actually maybe even come do an in-person display, question and answer period for the people of the town of Scarborough, when the time is right.
I would be delighted, yeah, with your invitation, yes.
Thank you.
And others in the staff.
Councilor Simon?
I had some concerns, and I discussed them with the chair and some other members of the council very briefly about the level of public notice that had been given up to this point. And that I don't think is a reflection of the work that the DOT has participated in. More, I was concerned about whether we were doing our due diligence as a council to our residents, because this is going to have an impact. And I think it, is a stretch to say that everyone is engaged all the time. And so to suggest that people know that this was on our agenda for this evening, that we're potentially discussing their property, I was concerned that we had not given people proper notice. And I understand the limitations in that the project has not been clearly defined and that it's not necessarily easy to identify and notify neighbors as we would if we were approving a permit or something like that. And so at this point, I look forward to the continued public engagement, and I am certainly appreciative of your willingness to meet and to continue those discussions. My hope that we're not putting our support behind something that is going to really negatively impact some of our citizens who have been homeowners, regardless of their length of time to start with.
Part of the work in preparation for this is to work toward a proposed alignment so that we will have something very concrete, very specific to publicly release and to get public reaction to it. In preparation to that, I have gone to every landowner and homeowner, sometimes on several occasions, and have met with them all, taken their phone and given them my card with my cell phone number. And I can actually run down Running Hill Road with you and tell you who they are by name. I mean, I've been there. And I've invited them to call me specifically if they hear any rumors that are disturbing. And in cases where we think that we need their property, we can blunt them and said this alignment goes through you or behind you or near you. And in other cases, we've said, we're coming near you, we're coming close, but you don't need to worry, we're not coming through you. So, and we've been pretty blunt with people, big candid, and said, we tried to reflect the homeowners' consumption, what we honestly think the best alignment will look like. And the famous one is that 2.5 years ago, the owner of the Durham Country Club came to me and said, I'm retiring. And he said, the highest and best use of my back nine would be for you to put the highway. Because we have time to go on. And he said, that the straight line is to go through the private course. Oh my God. So we've been dealing with that, and he's been very gracious about it. He's been very open with the public himself. So we've done a lot of work on the right-of-way issue. We're going to probably make a line public sometime in the next few weeks to show. And I'm happy to review it with anybody at this point now verbally. But the point is, we're going to produce a line drawing where we think the preferred, what we call the preferred alignment. Not the final alignment, the preferred alignment, the one that we would propose to the regulators. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, me.
Councilor Katarina.
It's not so much a question as just to let folks know, I mean, this is my neighborhood this is going through. And I'm frankly, as Peter knows, I'm thrilled. I've been working on this since 1980. Well, I moved here in 88, so probably 89, 90 is when PACS first came up with what are we going to do about potential issues. Of course, traffic has increased horrifically, particularly on 114 and up at the intersection with 22. And I can tell you from my own personal discussions with neighbors when I take my walks up New Road and Running Hill Road, that in fact they have met Mr. Mills, and they really enjoyed talking to him. I think the Turnpike is doing a good job. I do think, you know, if we put a little more public, as it gets out in the press and whatever, it'll remind the old timers of what's been in the works for a while, but also newer people. I will tell you, quite frankly, that there was a brand new house that the main Turnpike's already purchased the land from, that one, Peter, that they were redoing. It was on the market for 500 something. It just sold for $630,000 or 640. So there you go. It's going to have Running Hill Road in the front yard and the Turnpike in the back. So at some point, so yeah, we're excited up this neck of the woods. So just so you'll know.
Do you have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Henderson.
I just want to thank MTA for taking our feedback and making those adjustments into the MOA. I think that really demonstrates all of the goodwill that was discussed in the workshop that was mentioned and documenting it. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. Prior to this, we had a workshop on our community survey, and the biggest area of concern within the community was around traffic. And so I think this is going to be hopefully one key solution that will help address that over time, with hopefully many other solutions that we can take through to come. So I think seeing those community survey results really just kind of cements for me that this is needed. And so I'm supportive of seeing this process continuing to our land. So thank you again for taking our feedback and looking forward to the next steps.
Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, just to build on what Councilor Anderson, I think if you can die, I could be wrong, so I was just trying to find it, but in the GIS mapping, I believe the Running Hill Road area is actually red. So it's one of the few areas in all of our survey of town, that specific section of town, that has actually in the red. And so our Running Hill, which is commuters that are essentially trying to, that are trying to get to that part of Scarborough. And there's lots of traffic. I, like Jean Marie, take that route all the time. There's tons of traffic. It takes a lot of teamwork from strangers to get through there. Because if you wanted to let that blinking yellow light just go the way it goes, but the point is, this is actually, there's lots of talk about Route 1, and I think Route 1 is a different puzzle, and this will help Route 1. But I also think that this particular project, look at the red part of that GIS, helps it. Now, with that being said, I think what this is for me, I was thoroughly impressed with. I feel like you guys are coming to us very candidly and very genuine. And to me, this is me just supporting that approach. That it was very refreshing to have some government people come speak to us, not that just felt like they were speaking our language, and so this to me is supporting that approach. We are still having a turnpike, through town. It's not going to be pretty this whole time, and I suspect there's going to be some pretty upset people, and we're going to ruin perhaps the drive past Farming Hill Farm or what have you, right? So there's some reality to it, but to me, you couple what John Anderson said with the fact that I have faith in the process. This is me supporting the process. I'm woefully uneducated about the actual project to even speak to it yet, except I feel like you guys have the right approach, so I absolutely support it.
Well, I think it's a testament that you joined us on relatively short notice again to give us an update and to answer any questions that we had. I look forward to seeing this project move forward. It's been many years in the making. You know, to your point, it helps you achieve some of your other objectives, which is public transit and land planning. And nobody wants a road going through their, or highway going through their backyard. It's unfortunate. I think we're a little bit lucky that most of the path is reasonable. It's not all densely developed right now.
Eco Maine is very glad to be here.
Oh, there you go.
By the way. I think we're a great neighbor.
Yes, I agree.
I think it's reciprocal.
So with that, Tony, would you call the roll?
Council Sider? Sorry.
Yes.
Council Anderson?
Yes.
Council Paul Johnson?
Yes.
That's what's throwing me off. Council Katarina?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Council Hamel?
Yes.
Council Kenneth Johnson?
Yes.
And Chairman Tucci?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Next is item 10, standing and special committee reports and liaison reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Councilor Johnson.
Really quick, Wednesday, next Wednesday, from 2:30 to 4, the council is taking a tour of Scarborough Downs on a bus.
All right.
We're all boarding a bus, and we are taking a tour of the Downs next Wednesday, the 12th, from 2:30 to 4. Chairman Clucci sent out an email, I believe, a week and a half ago and asked if there were any objections. I believe there are no objections. So that is the time we are going to tour the Downs. About a year and a half ago, we took a tour of the Downs on foot, which was very informative. We chose a bus this time. That way we don't necessarily break off into small groups. We're all hearing the same, we can all ask questions and we're all hearing the same narrative from whoever's leading this tour. Of course, that should be posted on the town website. So Tom, if we can post on the town website as soon as possible, then we'll all be in the same bus. That will be Wednesday, 2:30 to 4. That is part of my liaison work with the Downs.
Thank you. Councilor Katarina.
Yes, we've already started working Maine Municipal Legislative Policy Committee. There was something I voted on yesterday, and the legislature, by the way, just came in today. They just started today. And that was a bill that Chris Chiazzo, our own representative, sponsored, which is to increase the penalties for interfering with election workers, which I think is really important. And I did notice that the survey that we did of our membership, which is about 35 people from throughout the state, different municipal officials, was unanimous in supporting that. So that's starting. Our next meeting is January, I don't know, it's around the 20th, 19th, 20th. So I will keep you all informed on things that are coming through that may be of impact to us in Scarborough in particular. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Councilor. Leadership. So as you all know by now, Councilor Paul Johnson and I have been working through a framework or proposal for the Downs exemption. And we've received feedback individually from each of you. And I think we're aligning fairly well on the details. And I'm going to coordinate with town staff to have a workshop after the tour of the Downs next week so that we can present, now that we've received your feedback, a synthesized version and have a discussion about it. So I'm anticipating doing that around 5 o'clock, so a little bit after the workshop, after the bus tour finishes. So look forward to that. Are there any council member comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Tony, would you call the roll?
Council Sider?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Council Paul Johnson?
Yes.
Councilor Katarina?
Yes.
Councilor Hamel?
Yes.
Councilor Kenneth Johnson?
Yes.
And Chairman Tucci?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.